Welcome, dear viewers, to The Inspired Muslim, where we bring to life the stories of faith, courage, and sacrifice that continue to shape our ummah. Today we begin one of the most powerful stories in Islamic history, the story of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.E.A., the noble uncle of Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, a man remembered as Asadullah, the Lion of Allah. Now pause for a moment and think. When you hear the word lion, what comes to mind? Strength, bravery, dignity, and protection. All of these qualities lived within Hamza, R.A. He wasn't just a warrior with a sword. He was a man with a heart full of loyalty, love, and later, faith that moved mountains. Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., was born into the noble tribe of Quraysh in Mecca. Long before Islam, people admired him for his unmatched courage. He was a skilled hunter, a wrestler, and a man who could command respect just by walking into a gathering. He had a presence that made people listen, a strength that made people cautious, and a character that made people trust him. But what makes Hamza's story so special, and what we at the Inspired Muslim want to highlight, is not just his strength in battle. It's the transformation of a man whose courage found its true purpose in defending the message of Allah. His life shows us that courage without faith is incomplete, but courage guided by faith becomes a legacy. When Islam was still young, fragile, and surrounded by enemies, Allah gifted the Muslim community with Hamza, R.A. His acceptance of Islam wasn't just a personal choice. It was a turning point for the entire ummah. It gave the Muslims confidence, it silenced their enemies, and it showed the world that the message of Islam would never be silenced. So, in this episode on The Inspired Muslim, journey with us through the life of this legendary companion. From his noble beginnings in Mecca, to his dramatic conversion to Islam, to his heroic stand in battles, and finally, to his martyrdom that shook the heart of the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, himself. This isn't just history. This is a story. But Hamza's R.A. life wasn't just about hunting and fighting. His adventurous spirit also came with loyalty and compassion. He loved his family dearly and was especially protective of his nephew Muhammad. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Even before the message of Islam was revealed, Hamza was known to stand up for him. He would not allow anyone to mock or harm his nephew, even if he didn't fully understand the mission Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, was destined for. One thing that stood out about Hamza, R.A. in his youth, was his natural leadership. People gravitated toward him because he carried himself with dignity. He had the kind of personality that didn't need to demand respect. It was given freely. This was a man who walked with pride, spoke with confidence, and lived with honor. Here at the Inspired Muslim, we see Hamza's early life as a reminder that every skill, every blessing, and every strength we have can eventually serve a higher purpose. His hunting skills, his physical strength, his protective nature, all of these qualities, which seemed like just talents of a young Qurayshi man, would later be used in the service of Islam. Nothing is wasted in Allah's plan. So, when we think about Hamza, R.A., as a youth, bold, fearless, adventurous, and loyal, we start to see how Allah was preparing him for a much greater role. Little did he know that one day his courage would change the course of Islamic history forever. 3. His conversion to Islam. Welcome back to the Inspired Muslim. Now that we've explored the bold and adventurous early life of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., it's time to witness the moment that changed everything. his dramatic conversion to Islam. At this point in history, the message of Islam had already begun to spread, but it wasn't easy. The Quraysh were furious with Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, for calling people away from idols and toward the worship of one God. They mocked him, insulted him, and even physically attacked him. And through all of this, the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, endured with patience and dignity. But one day, an incident would shake the people of Mecca, and it would bring Hamza, R.A., into Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, was near the Kaaba when Abu Jahl, one of the fiercest enemies of Islam, confronted him. Abu Jahl was cruel with his words and went as far as physically hurting the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Nobody at the time stepped in to defend him. Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. The Messenger of Allah walked away silently, with dignity, but also with deep pain. Not long after, Hamza, R.A., returned from a hunting trip, carrying his bow. As he entered Mecca, a woman saw him and rushed to tell him what had happened. She said, "Do you know what Abu Jahl just did to your nephew Muhammad? He insulted him, mocked him, and hurt him right in front of everyone, and no one stood up for him." When Hamza, R.A., heard this, his blood boiled. He was a man of honor, a man of loyalty, and if there was one thing he could never tolerate, it was someone hurting his family. Without hesitation, he marched straight to Abu Jahl. Imagine the scene. Abu Jahl sitting proudly among the Quraysh, boasting as always. Suddenly, Hamza storms in, bow in hand, anger burning in his eyes. He strikes Abu Jahl on the head and declares loudly for everyone to hear, "How dare you insult Muhammad while I follow his religion?" In that moment, Hamza, R.A., announced his Islam publicly. It wasn't planned. It wasn't slow. It was bold. It was sudden, and it shook the Quraysh to their core. Think about it. Hamza, one of the strongest and most respected warriors in Mecca, was now a Muslim. The weak and oppressed Muslims suddenly felt strength in their hearts. The Quraysh, who used to intimidate the believers, now hesitated, because who would dare challenge Hamza, the Lion of Quraysh? Here at the Inspired Muslim, this moment reminds us of something powerful. Sometimes a single act of courage can change the destiny of many. Hamza's conversion wasn't just personal. It was a shield for the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. A boost for the believers and a warning to the enemies of Islam. Hamza, R.A., didn't just accept Islam. He entered it with strength, with passion, and with an unshakable commitment. And from that day on, his bow, his sword, and his courage were no longer just for hunting or defending his family. They were dedicated to defending the truth of Allah's message. 4. His role in early Islam. Welcome back to the Inspired Muslim. We've just witnessed Hamza's powerful conversion to Islam, a moment that shook Mecca. But now comes the question, what role did Hamza, R.A., play in the early days of Islam? For the small Muslim community, life in Mecca was incredibly difficult. The Quraysh mocked them, tortured the weak among them, and tried everything to crush the new faith. Many companions practiced their prayers in secret, afraid of what would happen if they were discovered. It was a time of fear, silence, and constant oppression. But with Hamza, R.A., now among them, things began to change. His presence was like a shield. Suddenly, the Muslims were not as defenseless as before. Hamza was a warrior, respected and feared by the Quraysh. Nobody could simply insult or attack the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. in his presence. His conversion gave the believers something priceless: courage. Hamza, R.A., began to walk openly with the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Where once the Muslims gathered quietly in hidden corners, now they stood taller. The Quraysh noticed this shift. They realized that Islam was no longer just a religion of the poor, the weak, and the marginalized. It was now embraced by one of their own strongest men. And Hamza, R.A., wasn't just a silent supporter. He was vocal, fearless, and confrontational when it came to defending Islam. Whenever the Quraysh tried to belittle Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, Hamza was there to silence them. Whenever they threatened, Hamza stood as a wall. His very name struck fear into the hearts of those who dared oppose the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Here at the Inspired Muslim, we see Hamza's role as proof that Allah places the right people in the right positions at the right time. Just when the Muslims were most vulnerable, Allah guided Hamza's heart to Islam. And with his strength, the believers felt a new sense of confidence. Imagine the feeling of being a Muslim at that time. Before Hamza, you might have prayed in secret, looked over your shoulder in fear, or worried constantly about the Quraysh's violence. But after Hamza, you knew there was someone who would defend you, someone who would defend the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Someone whose courage reminded you that you were on the side of truth. Hamza, R.A., became more than just a companion. He became a symbol of protection and power. His faith was firm, his heart was loyal, and his courage was unshakable. The Quraysh could no longer bully the Muslims the way they used to, because standing behind Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, was Hamza, the Lion of Allah. And this was just the beginning. His role in early Islam would soon extend beyond Mecca onto the battlefield, where his courage would shine even brighter. Chapter 4. His participation in the Battle of Badr. Welcome back to the Inspired Muslim. Now we enter a chapter of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib's R.A. life that echoes through history, his role in the Battle of Badr. The year was 624 CE. The Muslims had migrated to Medina, but the Quraysh of Mecca were not ready to let them live in peace. They plotted, they threatened, and they marched with a massive army to crush the Muslims once and for all. The Muslims, outnumbered and less equipped, prepared for a battle that would decide the future of Islam. Among the Muslim army stood Hamza, R.A., his heart burning with faith and courage. He was no longer just Hamza the hunter or Hamza the warrior of Quraysh. He was Hamza the defender of Allah's messenger. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Hamza, the Lion of Allah. Before the battle began, as was the custom of the Arabs, champions from each side stepped forward for individual combat. This wasn't just about fighting. It was about honor, about striking fear into the enemy, and about proving strength. From the side of Quraysh, 3 of their strongest men came forward: Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, his brother Shayba, and his son Walid. They were fierce, experienced, and proud of their status. From the Muslim side, 3 men stepped forward: Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., Ali ibn Abi Talib, R.R.A., and Ubaidah ibn al-Harith, R.A. The duels began. Hamza, R.A., facing Shayba, wasted no time. His strike was decisive, powerful, and unstoppable. With one blow of his sword, he ended the fight. Ali, R.A., too struck down his opponent. Ubaidah, R.A., fought bravely, but he was badly wounded. Without hesitation, Hamza and Ali rushed to his side, finishing the enemy and carrying their brother back. The duels set the tone. The Muslims were not weak. They had courage, They had faith, and they had lions like Hamza among them. When the battle opened fully, Hamza, R.A., fought like a storm. He wore a distinctive feather on his chest, so the companions could recognize him as he charged through the battlefield. With every strike, he reminded the Quraysh that Islam was not a movement they could silence. He fought fearlessly, cutting down enemy after enemy, his strength unmatched and his heart filled with the certainty that he was fighting for the truth. The Quraysh were stunned. Their pride was broken. Their strongest warriors fell at the hands of men who fought not for wealth or fame, but for Allah. And at the center of it all was Hamza, R.A., a force that could not be ignored. By the end of the battle, the Muslims, though outnumbered 3-1, achieved a miraculous victory. 70 of the Quraysh were killed, many captured, and Islam took its first great step forward. Here at the Inspired Muslim, we see Hamza's role in Badr as a turning point. His bravery wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about showing the world that faith in Allah makes the weak strong, the few many, and the fearful brave. Hamza's sword was sharp, but it was his faith that made him unstoppable. The Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, loved Hamza deeply, but after Badr, his respect for him grew even more. Hamza had proven not only his loyalty to his family, but his devotion to Allah and his messenger, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. He was no longer just a protector, he was a hero of Islam, and this was only the beginning of his journey on the battlefield. The Lion of Allah was yet to face his greatest test, one that would come at Uhud 6. His martyrdom at the Battle of Uhud welcomed back to the Inspired Muslim. After the great victory at Badr, around 700 prepared for battle. Among them stood Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., strong, fearless, and ready to defend the messenger of Allah. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Once again, he wore an ostrich feather on his chest to distinguish himself on the battlefield, a mark of pride and courage. When the battle began, Hamza, R.A., fought like a lion set loose. He cut through the Quraysh ranks with strength and determination, striking fear into their hearts. His presence was so overwhelming that the Quraysh knew, if Islam was to be defeated, Hamza had to be stopped. Among their ranks was a man named Washi ibn Harb, a skilled Abyssinian warrior and spear thrower. He was promised freedom by Hind bint Utbah, the wife of Abu Sufyan, if he managed to kill Hamza. Hind hated Hamza deeply. At Badr, he had killed her father, Utbah, her brother, and other close relatives. She wanted revenge at any cost. Washi's mission was clear: avoid the chaos of battle, stay out of sight, and wait for the perfect moment to strike Hamza. As the fighting raged, Hamza, R.A., continued to charge bravely. Then, at one unguarded moment, Washi saw his chance. From a distance, he took aim with his spear. With a deadly throw, the spear struck Hamza in his abdomen. The Lion of Allah fell to the ground, martyred in the midst of battle. The news spread across the field. For the Muslims, it was a devastating blow. For the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, it was one of the most heartbreaking moments of his life. But the tragedy did not end there. Hind, filled with rage and vengeance, approached the body of Hamza. In her cruelty, she mutilated him, cutting out his liver and even attempting to chew it. This act of brutality shocked everyone, leaving the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, in deep grief when he later saw the state of his beloved uncle. The Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, wept over Hamza's body. He stood by his side, calling him Sayyid al-Shuhada, the leader of martyrs. He prayed for him and felt a grief so heavy that it stayed with him for the rest of his life. In fact, Hamza's loss was so painful that whenever the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, thought of martyrs, he thought of Hamza. Here at the Inspired Muslim, this moment teaches us something profound. Hamza's death reminds us that Islam was not built without sacrifice. The faith we practice today came with the blood of martyrs, with the pain of loss, and with the courage of men and women who gave everything for Allah. Hamza, R.A., left this world in the most honorable way, on the battlefield, defending the truth, standing tall until his last breath. And though his body was broken, his spirit soared high. He will forever be remembered as the Lion of Allah, the uncle of the Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, and the Sayyid al-Shuhada. And yet his legacy didn't end with Uhud. His martyrdom became a symbol of sacrifice and faith for generations of Muslims to come. 7. His legacy, welcome back to the Inspired Muslim. We've walked through the powerful journey of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., from his noble beginnings to his dramatic conversion, to his courage in battle, and finally to his heartbreaking martyrdom at Uhud. But Hamza's story doesn't end with his death. In fact, his legacy grew even larger after he returned to Allah. The Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, gave Hamza a title that no one else was given, Sayyid al-Shuhada, the leader of the martyrs. Imagine the honor of being remembered as the one who leads all martyrs in the path of Allah. It wasn't just because he died in battle, but because of the courage, loyalty, and faith he carried throughout his life. Even after his passing, Hamza's memory lived strongly in the heart of the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. Whenever the messenger, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, would speak of martyrs, his eyes would often well with tears, and he would think of Hamza. That deep love and grief never left him. For the Muslim community, Hamza, R.A., became a symbol of strength. His life taught them that faith requires sacrifice, and his martyrdom reminded them that the path of Islam is not easy, but it is noble. Generations of Muslims would hear his story and feel inspired to stand firm, no matter the odds. His resting place on the battlefield of Uhud became a site of remembrance. To this day, visitors to Medina stop at Uhud to pay their respects to Hamza and the other martyrs, remembering their sacrifice with prayers and tears. Standing there, you can almost feel the weight of history, the courage, the pain, and the honor of those who gave their lives for Allah. Here at the Inspired Muslim, Hamza's legacy is a reminder that true greatness isn't found in wealth, status, or fame. It's found in living for Allah and being willing to give everything for Him. Hamza's strength as a warrior was admired, but it was his faith that made him eternal. His courage with the sword ended in this world, but his courage and faith lives forever. Think about it. Today, over 400 years later, we are still telling his story. We are still moved by his bravery. We are still inspired by his sacrifice. That is the kind of legacy every believer should strive for, a legacy that continues to inspire long after we are gone. Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., will forever be remembered as the Lion of Allah, the protector of the Prophet. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, and the leader of martyrs. His story is not just history. It is a light for all of us who walk the path of faith. 8. Lessons from his life. Welcome back once again to the Inspired Muslim. We've journeyed through the life of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., his 4. Sacrifice is the price of faith. Hamza's martyrdom reminds us that Islam didn't spread through ease and comfort. It spread through sacrifice. He gave his life on the battlefield, and though we may not be called to fight with swords, we are called to sacrifice our time, our wealth, our desires, for the sake of Allah. 5. True legacy is built through faith. Today, more than 1,400 years later, Muslims across the globe still remember Hamza. Why? Because his life was lived for Allah. His story proves that wealth fades, status disappears, but faith and sacrifice live forever. The question we should ask ourselves is, what kind of legacy am I building? Here at the Inspired Muslim, Hamza's life reminds us to be bold in our faith, to stand tall in times of trial, and to live in such a way that when we leave this world, our story inspires others to come closer to Allah. Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., was more than a warrior. He was a man of faith, of loyalty, of sacrifice, a man who walked the earth with courage and left it as the leader of martyrs. And his story will continue to inspire Muslims until the Day of Judgment. So, as we close this series on Hamza, R.A., let us carry his lessons in our own lives. Let us be lions in faith, defenders of truth, and builders of legacies that shine in the sight of Allah. As we close this journey into the life of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, R.A., the Lion of Allah, let us pause and reflect. His story isn't just history, it's a living lesson for all of us. Hamza's courage teaches us to stand firm in truth. His loyalty reminds us to protect and support those we love in righteousness. His sacrifice shows us that faith often asks for more than comfort. It asks for devotion, resilience, and sometimes the ultimate price. Even today, over 1,400 years later, we remember him not for his wealth, his status, or his victories, but for his faith, his heart, and his unwavering commitment to Allah and his messenger. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon him. That is the kind of legacy we should all strive to leave behind. Here at the Inspired Muslim, we share Hamza's story so that it lights a fire within your heart to be brave in your faith, steadfast in your convictions, and generous in your devotion. So let us honor Hamza, R.A., by carrying forward his lessons in our daily lives. Stand up for what is right, protect those in need, and live in a way that inspires others long after you're gone. May Allah bless us with the courage, faith, and devotion of Hamza ibn Abdul-Muttalib, ERA, and may he make us steadfast on the path of truth. If you've been inspired by Hamza's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Inspired Muslim. Let's continue to learn from the lives of the companions and bring their lessons into our lives today. Jazakallahu khair for watching, and may your faith grow stronger every day.